Okay, so today we're going to dive deep, really deep, into this whole idea of agentic leadership.
Agentic leadership, yeah.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Kashif Zaman, I think, really nails it when he says AI is not just, another shiny new tech tool. It's really like a whole new way of thinking about, being a leader in the day and age.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is he argues that those kind of like fundamental, those like core principles of leadership, the stuff we've been talking about forever, they're actually more important now than ever, right? It's not like AI comes in and suddenly, all those great ideas from people like, Howard Schultz over at Starbucks, building that human connection, or even Ray Dalio at Bridgewater, radical transparency. It's not like that stuff goes out the window.
No.
Zaman's saying it's actually more important, but what we need to do is figure out how to use AI to amplify those things, those core pieces of leadership wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about robots taking over, the corner office or anything.
Right.
It's about how, AI can kind of work as a partner, to make those leadership qualities, all that human stuff, even stronger.
So that's exactly what we're going to get into today. We're going to explore how AI can give leaders, give you listening, that sharper vision, that agility you need in a world that's constantly changing. We're going to look at some of those classic leadership ideas, but through the lens of AI. So where should we start? Oh, I know, empathy.
Okay, empathy.
You can't go wrong with that. And what better example than Howard Schultz and the Starbucks story? I mean, building a global brand on the idea of human connection. That's impressive.
Absolutely. I mean, Schultz was really insistent that Starbucks be more than just a place to, grab a caffeine fix.
Right. It was a third place.
Exactly. A third place. It was meant to be, a community, a place where people could connect.
But, it's easy to do that when you've got a handful of stores.
Yeah.
What happens when you're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
How do you keep that personal touch when you've got thousands of employees and even more customers?
Right. That's the challenge of scale, isn't it? It's almost inevitable that you get some distance, between leadership and the people on the front lines.
Right.
And, it becomes harder to really get a sense of the emotional temperature of the organization.
Absolutely. And, people might not always feel comfortable speaking their minds, especially, if they think it might not align with what the higher-ups want to hear.
Right.
So you've got leaders making decisions based on, maybe incomplete information, potentially with some, unconscious biases creeping in. And that's where Zaman gets really, really interesting. He talks about AI being like an unbiased, thought partner.
Yeah, and I think this is where it starts to get really exciting. It's imagine AI functioning almost like, I don't know, like an emotional seismograph for your organization. A seismograph, like the thing that detects earthquakes.
Oh, I see.
It's picking up on these subtle shifts in sentiment that you might completely miss if you're just relying on traditional channels. So think about all the communication that's happening. Emails, transcripts from meetings, feedback from all these different platforms.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of that.
Right. AI can analyze all of that. And it's looking for those recurring keywords.
Oh, interesting.
And it starts to paint a picture, using data of how people are actually feeling. What's the mood?
Wow.
It's pretty incredible.
So instead of just going with your gut or maybe reading those kind of polished reports that don't always give you the full picture,
right,
you can actually get this deeper, data-driven understanding of what's really going on.
It's all about getting those insights, that you might miss otherwise.
Yeah. And that could lead to better decisions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, decisions that are not just, more efficient,
right,
but actually more empathetic, which, at the end of the day, helps you strengthen those human connections that Schultz was talking about.
Exactly. I love how Zaman puts it. He says that AI can see what words conceal.
Oh, that's great.
It can sort of pick up on those unspoken concerns, reflect what people might be hesitant to say directly. And it can do that at a scale, right?
Right.
Across a huge organization. It's it's giving you this superpower of empathy that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Okay, so we've got empathy. Now, let's talk about something, maybe a little less touchy-feely. How about radical transparency?
Oh, yeah.
Ray Dalio, Bridgewater, you know the story.
Dalio's big thing was this idea that, truth and merit, those should be the driving forces in an organization, not just, who's got the fanciest title or the biggest office. Yeah. He wanted to create this environment where people could debate openly, where information flowed freely. And the idea was that, the best ideas would rise to the top.
And the best decisions.
Exactly, the best decisions. But, how often does that really happen in a typical organization? Information gets siloed.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are sometimes afraid to speak up, especially if it means, challenging someone higher up the food chain.
Yeah.
And the systems, they're not always designed to give you those real, raw insights.
And you end up with these reports, these dashboards. They look fancy.
They look fancy, yeah.
But they're really just showing you a very, very limited slice of the pie, right?
Right, yeah.
And then leaders end up making decisions with these huge blind spots. And they're not even aware of it.
They don't even know it.
Yeah, so they're going off assumptions instead of the full picture.
Right, and that's where Zaman comes in with this idea of AI as the, the illuminator of unvarnished truth.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, like cutting through the fog.
Exactly. So AI is looking at all these different levels of communication,
Right.
analyzing how decisions are being made, pulling in feedback from the front lines, and it's looking for those gaps, the inconsistencies, the things that people might not be talking about, for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's bringing those things to light so leaders can't ignore them.
Exactly. It's like shining a spotlight, on those dark corners.
Right.
So you're not relying on these carefully curated summaries anymore.
Right.
You're getting the real unfiltered data.
The truth, right.
The truth.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Exactly. And that's how you make decisions that are actually grounded in reality, not just, in what people think is happening or what they want you to believe is happening.
It's making that principle of radical truth that Dalio is so passionate about, it's actually making it possible. Okay, so let's move on to another big name, shall we?
Okay, who's next?
Satya Nadella. I mean, what he did at Microsoft, it's amazing, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, talk about a cultural transformation.
He really shifted that whole mindset.
He did.
From kind of know it all to learn it all, emphasizing adaptability, continuous learning, always be growing. It's inspiring.
Totally. And he was really successful, right? I mean, Microsoft's doing amazingly well. But honestly, for a lot of companies, trying to create that kind of culture, it's tough.
It is.
There's so many things that can get in the way. Bureaucracy, not being able to access the right data, these really rigid hierarchies, sometimes even a fear of failure, right? People are so afraid to make a mistake that they don't even try anything new.
And knowledge just ends up trapped, within specific teams or departments.
Right, in those silos.
You can't get to it even if you wanted to. And Zaman's got this great term for AI in this context. He calls it the catalyst of limitless learning.
Oh, I like that.
It's breaking down those barriers, that are preventing people from growing.
Exactly. It's imagine AI being this personalized mentor for everyone in the organization, and it can give them exactly what they need, right when they need it.
It's tailoring everything to them, right?
Exactly. So it's suggesting learning paths, based on their skills and their goals, and then it's providing this real-time support while they're working.
So they don't even have to stop what they're doing, go hunt for information, go through all these bureaucratic hoops. It's just there.
It's all right there.
It's amazing.
It's knowledge is just flowing freely throughout the organization.
Right.
And everyone's got access to it.
No more gatekeeping. Everyone's learning, everyone's growing. That's the dream.
Right.
Okay, now I want to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about discipline.
Oh. Okay.
I know. Not the most exciting topic, maybe, but bear with me. Jim Collins, he's got a lot to say about this. Disciplined people, disciplined thought, disciplined action. He argues that consistent execution, that's the key to building a truly great, lasting organization.
Absolutely. I mean, his work really emphasizes that you don't get to greatness through some magical overnight success, right? It's about putting in the work day after day, consistently across the whole organization.
Yeah. It's not sexy, but it's true.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the challenge for a lot of leaders is finding that sweet spot. How do you create that discipline without stifling creativity?
Right, because you don't want people to feel like robots.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
You need that spark, that innovation.
Yeah, too much rigidity and everything just grinds to a halt, but too much freedom, and then you've got chaos.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. But Zaman, he comes in with another great term here. He calls AI the scaffolding of disciplined progress.
Oh, that's really good.
Right. It's providing the structure, that support, but it's not boxing people in.
Exactly. So AI can be used to track progress, right? It
Yeah.
can give you those real-time updates on how you're doing against your objectives. And it's doing it objectively, without any kind of human bias creeping in.
Right, so it's keeping everyone accountable.
Yeah, and it can highlight potential roadblocks. It can even help make sure you've got the right people in the right role.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it can ensure that the decisions you're making are, actually data-driven.
So you're not just going with your gut.
Right.
You're actually looking at the numbers. You're making informed choices.
Exactly. So it's like, you're setting up the structure. You're creating the method, as Zaman calls it.
Right, but within that structure,
Yeah.
there's still room for people to be creative, to innovate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like discipline is actually amplifying the creativity, not crushing it.
Okay, so we've talked about empathy, we've talked about transparency, discipline. Now let's talk about purpose. Big topic. And, when you think about purpose, you got to think about Simon Sinek. I mean, he really nailed it, right? The power of why.
Yeah, Sinek's work really struck a chord, with a lot of people. He reminded us that organizations, they thrive when they have that clear sense of purpose.
Right. It's not just about what you do or how you do it. It's why you do it. And it's so easy, especially with all the AI stuff going on, to get caught up in the what and the how, right? We're so focused on the technology, on the processes, and we forget about the why. Like, why are we even doing this?
Right. And if you lose sight of that why, you just end up chasing trends, right?
Right.
You're reacting instead of leading. You're not really sure where you're going.
You're rudderless. But Zaman, he sees AI as the compass of the true north.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right, like it's helping you stay focused on what really matters even when things get crazy.
Yeah, I love that. It's like you've got this AI agent that's constantly checking in, making sure everything you're doing is aligned with your core purpose.
Right, and if it's not,
it kind of nudges you back on track. It's like this gentle reminder of what you're really all about.
so all those AI-driven changes, they're not just happening for no reason, right?
Yeah.
They're all tied back to that fundamental why.
Exactly. It's ensuring that your transformation is driven by purpose, not just by this desire to, be trendy or to automate everything.
Okay, let's switch gears again. Let's talk about creativity. And I'm thinking specifically about Ed Catmull and his experience at Pixar. I mean, talk about a creative powerhouse.
Oh, absolutely. At Pixar, they're the masters. And Catmull, he was really good at fostering what Zaman calls creative fusion. It's like, building an environment where ideas can come from anywhere, where people can just riff off of each other.
And they come from all these different backgrounds, different disciplines, all working together.
Exactly. They're not afraid to, throw out wild ideas, to challenge each other, to build on each other's thinking.
And that's how you get those amazing movies.
Right.
But the problem is, in a lot of companies, knowledge gets trapped, in those silos we were talking about.
Oh, yeah, those silos.
So you've got all these brilliant people with amazing ideas, but they're not connecting, they're not collaborating.
You're not cross-pollinating.
Right. And that's where, Zaman sees AI playing this crucial role. He calls it the bridge over hidden knowledge silos.
Ooh, that's good. It's like connecting those dots, that we might not even be able to see.
Right. So AI can identify those hidden connections. And suddenly, boom, solutions emerge. You find out someone in another department already solved a problem you're struggling with.
Exactly. Or you realize that, by combining this idea from one team with that idea from another team, you can create something completely new.
Something amazing.
Something amazing,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like all that knowledge that was just sitting there unused is suddenly turned into this fuel for innovation.
Okay, so we've got empathy, transparency, discipline, purpose, creativity. Let's talk about potential. And for this one, I want to bring in Laszlo Bock.
Okay, Laszlo Bock.
He did some pretty amazing things at Google, right?
He did.
And his big focus was on, unlocking that boundless potential that exists within every individual in the organization.
Yeah, empowering people, trusting them to make good decisions.
Right. The idea that the best ideas, they can come from anywhere. It doesn't matter what your title is or how long you've been with the company. If you've got a good idea, bring it to the table.
Right. And Google, under Bock, they were really good at creating that kind of environment.
Right.
But in a lot of organizations, it's just not that simple.
It's not.
You've got those hierarchies, those old school ways of doing things, and they just end up stifling a lot of that potential.
Right. Like people don't even bother sharing their ideas because they don't think anyone will listen.
Right. They feel like their voice doesn't matter.
And Zaman, he sees AI as the solution to this problem. He calls it the conductor of collective genius.
Ooh, I love that one.
Right. It's like orchestrating all those individual voices, all that talent, into this like symphony of innovation.
Exactly. It's like imagine having an AI system that can facilitate these huge, organization-wide brainstorming sessions.
Right.
And everyone can participate, regardless of their level or department.
And the AI, it can analyze all those ideas, find the patterns, cluster the similar ones, highlight the ones with the most potential.
Right. And then you can actually do something with them.
You're not just wasting everyone's time with these like endless brainstorming sessions that go nowhere.
No, you're actually getting results.
It's democratizing innovation, right?
Exactly. It's giving everyone a chance to shape the future of the organization.
Okay, let's talk about another, less tangible, but still super important leadership quality. Courage. I mean, real courage. And when I think about courage, I think about Ben Horowitz.
Yeah, the guy who's seen it all, right?
Right. He's all about making tough decisions, especially when times are tough, when the market's volatile, when there's a lot of uncertainty. And the easy thing to do would be to just, freeze up.
Right. But he says, no, you got to act. You got to make a decision, even when you don't have all the information.
Even when you're scared.
Even when you're scared. And that takes courage, real courage.
It does. But a lot of organizations, they struggle with this.
Yeah, they hesitate.
They overthink it.
Mm-hmm. They're paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong move. And you know what? Sometimes that hesitation, it can be even more costly than making the wrong decision.
It can.
Yeah.
Because while you're hesitating, the world is changing around you and you've missed your opportunity.
Right. But Zaman, he sees AI as this tool to overcome that hesitation. He calls it the oracle of bold decisions.
Ooh, that's a good one. So the AI is peering into the future.
In a way, yeah. It's like a strategic foresight engine. So you can use AI to model all these different scenarios.
Right.
You can look at the potential risks. You can identify the most promising paths forward. And it's all based on data,
It's not just like some crystal ball, right?
Yeah.
It's real analysis.
It's real analysis.
Yeah.
So even when things are crazy, the market's going haywire, whatever, you can still make informed decisions.
You're confident because you've got the data to back you up.
Yeah.
Okay, one more for the road. Let's talk about judgment. And for this one, I'm thinking about Patty McCord.
Oh, Patty McCord, Netflix, the whole freedom and responsibility thing.
Right. She really believed in empowering people. Giving them clear expectations, making sure they had all the information they needed, and then trusting them to make the right call.
And it worked for Netflix, right?
It did.
They created this amazing culture of innovation. But honestly, for a lot of companies trying to replicate that, it's really tough.
It is.
It's really hard to let go of that control, Leaders want to be involved in every decision. And you end up with these bottlenecks, these delays. People are second-guessing themselves, and their judgment gets clouded because they don't have all the information.
They don't feel empowered.
Right. But Zaman, he argues that AI can actually help organizations overcome that. He calls it the engine of empowered autonomy.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
So it's like AI is giving people the tools they need to be autonomous.
Exactly. It's giving them the information they need, the feedback they need. So think about goal setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
With AI, you can make those goals dynamic. They can change based on real-time data.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and you can track progress continuously.
Right.
And you can make sure everything is aligned, with the overall goals of the organization.
So instead of having all these layers of managers checking in, micromanaging, slowing everything down, you've got the AI doing a lot of that heavy lifting.
Right, providing the feedback, keeping everyone on track.
It's giving people that autonomy, that freedom that they need to really thrive.
Exactly. And it's all powered by data, which means it's objective, it's fair, and it's scalable.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, last one, I promise.
Okay, bring it on.
I want to talk about passion.
Yeah.
And, resilience. I mean, you can't talk about those things without talking about Phil Knight, Nike, the whole story.
Oh, yeah, Phil Knight. I mean, talk about resilience, right? He just wouldn't give up. And it was all fueled by this, deep passion for what he was doing.
Right. And that's what built Nike. But how do you sustain that,
right,
over the long term when you've got all these day-to-day demands, these mundane tasks, all the administrative stuff that just drains the energy out of you? How do you keep that fire burning?
It's tough. It's really tough. But Zaman, he's got this idea of AI being what is it? The fosterer of resilient passion.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Because it's like, the AI can take care of all that boring stuff.
Exactly. All the things that just sap your energy, your enthusiasm.
Okay.
Think about all those repetitive tasks, the data entry, the scheduling, all the stuff that just makes you want to bang your head on the desk.
The grind.
The grind, yeah. AI can automate all of that. And what does that mean for people?
It means they can focus on the stuff that actually matters.
Right. The stuff that excites them, that aligns with their passions, their skills, the stuff that makes them want to jump out of bed in the morning.
And when people are doing work they love, they're naturally more resilient.
Absolutely.
They can handle the challenges, the setbacks, because they believe in what they're doing.
They've got that fire in their belly. So it's like AI is clearing the path, It's getting rid of all the obstacles that are draining people's energy and preventing them from really shining.
It's letting that passion shine through. So I think, if we take a step back and look at everything we've talked about today, I think Zaman is really onto something here with this whole agentic leadership idea.
I agree.
It's not about AI replacing leaders, right?
No.
It's about AI helping leaders be even better at what they do. It's about amplifying those core leadership qualities that have always been important, things like empathy, transparency, purpose.
Exactly. And it's about using AI to overcome those human limitations, those things that get in our way that prevent us from being the best leaders we can be.
Right. So the question isn't like, is AI going to transform leadership? It's more like, are you, the listener, are you ready to lead that transformation?
That's the question.
So, as you're listening to this, I want you to think about your own leadership role, or if you're not a leader, think about your organization. Which of these agentic leadership principles, really resonates with you? What are the challenges you're facing? And how could AI help you overcome those challenges?
Right, because this stuff, it's not just theory.
It's not just some buzzwords. It's real. And it's happening now. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to get left behind.
That's the truth.
So think about it. Are you leading the AI transformation? Or is it leading you?
Good question.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.